G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Aussie Starcraft. We bring you some more games from the Ultra Invitational. In the top left hand corner, as our purple Terran player, it's going to be EG's Demuslim. In the bottom right hand corner, as our blue Zerg player, it's going to be Liquid Snoot. Now, Snoot, one of my favourite Zerg players lately, just playing such great Starcraft and achieving very consistent results here in 2014. Super excited to see what he brings us at the Ultra Invitational. ZVT, of course, one of the most dynamic and fun matchups to watch. You have the very exciting Baneling detonations, Widow mines, all sorts of random and capricious goodness going back and forward. Of course, this is a matchup that has been shaken up a bit recently. Things like the recent Hellbat buff, making it quite a bit more challenging for Zerg players in the early stage. We are seeing a little bit different dance to what we're used to. Of course, very used to Reaper openings from our Terran player, and we'll see if Demuslim elects to go for that sort of strategy. We have a supply depot down. We'll see if he decides to go for that. Refinery and a barracks is a very safe opener. Most Terran players do go for that sort of route. I actually see him queuing up a lot of SCVs here. May well decide to go for something very greedy like a CC first. Interested to see what is thrown out here. We have Snoot actually going for Hatch first, taking his natural expansion, but surprisingly Demuslim hovering a lot of minerals here, up to 400. Could well be throwing his CC first, and indeed it looks like that's what it will be. Now, this is a bit risky for a Terran player, particularly if Snoot goes for an early pull. A couple of Zerglings can very much delay this and make life extremely difficult for a Terran player. So Demuslim opening very greedy, but I gotta say, I do like the diversity. It's nice to see something a little bit out of the ordinary. We have a barracks here already positioned for things like the reactor add-on. A bit indicative that we may well see some Hellions come into play very soon. Once that refinery does go down, we'll see a factory placed behind it. Makes it nice and easy to swap those out, and still gives you the opportunity to block off the ramp with the add-on. Snoot's pool on the way now, as well as a drone, which could be scouting, but probably more likely heading to the third base location. Actually, may just be a transferring drone. So we are seeing quite a bit of resources hovered for both our players. 300 for Snoot and almost 500 here for Demuslim. So a heck of a lot of resources. First Marine's now in production. That Marine going to chase down this poor Overlord. The race is on as this Overlord makes a mad dash for the safety behind the base. Marine almost finished out. Now the question is, can he make it in time? And I think he may well get there. The Marine streaking with his minigun after the Overlord, but Overlord does have quite a bit of a head start. It's going to be a bit of a dicey proposition here. Refinery does go down. Have a second Overlord take up a nice position on the high ground here. Snoot taking the first of his gas and just continuing to drone up quite heavily. Looks like it's actually going to be very close. I think the Overlord will in fact go down as this Marine continues to streak. Looks like the Overlord makes it with 11 HP, so Snoot cutting things pretty fine with the Overlord, but poor Marine just didn't eat enough Wheaties for breakfast and managed to lose the Overlord in the process. Third CC going down, so very greedy from Demuslim. This is going to put a lot of pressure on Snoot to get aggressive early on. He's actually behind in the base camp. Certainly not somewhere you want to be with a Terran player who can drop mules from 3 orbital commands. If we look at what Snoot can see, he's only seen the second command center. That Overlord had actually flown over before the third command center was placed, so not quite aware that this is as greedy as Demuslim is in fact being. Question is, what will he do with it? Snoot actually going for a relatively gasless opening. There is, of course, the single geyser there for things like Zergling speed and the lair in due course, but actually producing a lot of queens. One of the things I love about Snoot's style is just the sheer volume of queens you see on the field. 4 or 5 queens, certainly not uncommon, and has been known to go a lot higher, particularly against Protoss, where the anti-air is quite desirable early in the game, particularly without spending your gas. We're starting to see those mules be thrown down the income. Actually dead even for both of our players. Not something we're used to seeing, particularly in a TvZ matchup. Often you'll see the Zerg player go up to 3 bases while the Terran player tries to harass them, but Demuslim taking a slightly different route here, just instead going for ultra economy. few Hellions going to be coming out, but for the large part, Demuslim going for the later game, throwing down a pair of engineering bays, going to be tossing the 1-1 upgrades on the burner, and going to be wanting to throw down an armory in due course. But mineral income just skyrocketing as we continue to have mule after mule. We sit 500 minerals ahead of our Zerg player. Queen's actually throwing down a silly amount of creep for Snoot here. His creep just ploughing forward, 3 tumours at a time. 2 queens dedicated to spreading that in all directions. Third base starting to get saturated now. 15 workers there and a few Zerglings starting to come out. So these Hellions not initially going to be able to do a lot. A little bit later than Hellions would ordinarily be, mainly because of the massive economy that Demuslim did in fact elect to go for. We do see 2 bases saturated and a third base now being taken, but the trade-off for that is these Hellions were a little bit slower, already got some damage on the Hellions from those queens, and it's going to be a little bit harder for Demuslim to get in and do the damage he needs. These queens spreading creep towards the third base, and there is going to be a heck of a lot of it. So these Hellions going to be hard pressed to actually get in and do any damage here. Another queen waiting at the third. Hellions going to be forced backwards, and we see they've taken a lot of damage and been unable to actually do a whole lot to the Zerg player. So Snoot going to safely grab 3 bases, and his creep spread actually off the chain here as it's almost completely covered the location for a potential 4th. I'd be surprised if we don't see Snoot actually expand towards his opponent. Certainly not something common from our Zerg players, particularly as most Terran players seem to focus a very parade push style against the Zerg third base. It may well be the case that Snoot deciding to go for a much more aggressive approach now that he's got enough queens down, can well spread the creep and just move towards his Terran opponent at a relatively ridiculous speed. Though we do have a lot of Hellions moving out here. 8 Hellions is going to be enough to put a bit of pressure on. Actually can focus down these creep tumors and damage the queens if they're not careful. 2 medevacs here could potentially lift either the Marines or the Hellions. So got to be careful, as a Hellion drops very scary, not common that we see those, but 8 Hellions dropped into your main base could destroy your mineral line in a matter of seconds. But Demuslim has different plans here, instead using these Hellions try and thin out the Zerglings and Banelings. All these creep tumors being picked off, that's going to delay the creep spread of Snoot quite a bit, though at 10 minutes being to the halfway point on this map certainly is no shortage of creep on the Zerg side of the map. Creep continuing to spread up the other lanes of the map, continuing to force the Terran player to get active and engage on this creep, which is very dangerous. We have a lot of Zerglings, Banelings here. Zergling speed has now finished up, along with Baneling speed. So, well, Zergling speed finished a long time ago, but Baneling speed finished up now. There's a very dangerous army for Demuslim. Got to be careful. If he stays on that creep, it will be wholly wiped out. And the first Mutalisks now popping out of their cocoons. So, few difficult decisions for Demuslim. Will he continue to try and harass here at the risk of losing this force as soon as these units die? That will very much yield map control to our Zerg player. Those few Mutalisks now in production, being built 4 or 5 at a time to supplement these few that are already in play. Nice drop from Demuslim, winging its way down the right hand side. Unfortunately, unable to make their way in. The Mutalisks here able to deny that drop, force them to drop on the low ground. The Marines going to group up with the remainder of the army as Snoot does in fact take his 4th base towards his opponent. So nice decision from Snoot there. Got to say, I do agree with it. I think excellent decision. Terran player occupying his 3rd base. Nice wall off with the barracks here. I like that little touch there. A few Marines in a bunker going to be trying to secure that location. The Marines continuing to try and force this creep back as best they can. But I gotta say, I don't know that there's enough Terran units down here to prevent this Zerg army from just sweeping out and annihilating these. The Hellion being focused down very quickly along with the Hellbat. Nice Baneling detonations as Demuslim unable to split and react in time. Lots of these Banelings rolling in for excellent connections. Mueller's can focus these medevacs back, and they are the money units if you can clean up the medevacs, which is all important units as the gas units very expensive to replace, and they ensure that there's a much lower unit efficiency here. So unable to finish that medevac off. It is so low on health but so high on energy. You really want to pick those off as quickly as you can. We see Snoot able to cancel a few of those add-ons, which is a nice little touch there. Almost able to pick off the barracks as well. But unfortunately not able to quite capitalise as much as he'd like to. We have 2 Hellbats and 12 Marines at a time. There's a massive surround from these Zerglings. They get in here, Hellbats just toasting away, doing so much damage. They've gone to 14 kills, 16 kills on the Hellbat, almost 22 kills between those. The Mutalisks, however, able to clean up the remaining units and just go to town on these SCVs. We have so many SCVs dying, 9 SCVs going down already from Demuslim's third base as a Marine pops out of the barracks only to be obliterated by the Mutalisks. We have reinforcing Zerglings streaking across the map, but unfortunately for Demuslim, his production was hampered there. The poor reactors on those barracks being taken out. We have Snoot rocketing up to 182 supplies, 4 bases chugging along, injects going time after time in sync, managing to keep that production nice and efficient for our Zerg player. Demuslim's 10 or 12 Marines at a time struggling to keep pace with Snoot. A few of these Banelings being cancelled, but a few more yet finishing. Decent splits from Demuslim, but these Banelings still able to connect as these units have nowhere to run. Zerglings get this round, and it looks like Snoot will be able to mop up and take game number 1 in this series. So, nice play from both these players. Unfortunately for Demuslim, it went for the greedy opening, but Snoot just able to power through some great connections, and that creep spread. I've got to say, a lot of those battles went much easier for Snoot because of the creep spread. Demuslim took his eye off the ball for just a minute, and that gave Snoot the edge he needed in that first engagement. So great job, well played by Snoot. Super excited to see what else he brings us in this tournament. And yeah, this game from the group stages of the tournament. We've got plenty more action coming up after this. If it was your first time on the channel, I do hope you enjoyed your time here. We've got a lot more coming up, so please subscribe. I'd love to see you here in the future. And for all our returning viewers, thanks for tuning in. We've got plenty more StarCraft 2 coming up just after this. Thanks, guys.